Photographs console us in the face of death and oblivion. It's their fundamental gift. They testify to what has been and what will be no more, and this testimony matters. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
Yeah, and this is episode 161 for the middle of June 2022.
Oh, June.
June. Did I say
Well, it's
June?
getting warm here finally.
Yeah, it is. It's actually been quite nice and spring-like and not quite summertime yet, but yeah. So I wanted to, thanks Ward for joining me in the show. I wanted to avoid another dispatches from Greenwood to follow up on the last episode so that people knew what was going on.
Okay.
And my wife Elizabeth passed away a week ago from yesterday, Saturday, June 4th, of ovarian cancer. It was one day before our 23rd anniversary.
Wow.
But yeah. But for all intents and purposes, we were married 23 years. And I wanted to do a show talking about a couple of things related to photography and this event, but I did want to make sure that everybody knew, because I got a lot of random messages from people from different email and Twitter and even like Facebook Messenger or something like that, from people who are reaching out to tell me to hang on, or the support, and just general words of support. And I want to thank those people. I don't have everybody's name right now, but I want to thank those people who are listening to the show, who came out and sent me those words of support, because they came in at just the right time. I really needed it. Because when this stuff was happening, while it's happening, it was really good to have any kind of contact with anybody. Mm-hmm. Even though we had a lot of friends and the quick story is, we had to go to the hospital. We actually started hospice, with her. And just as we started hospice, we had a night where she was really bad. She had a hard time breathing. Mm. And hard time. She was in pain, and so we were doing home hospice, and we had a nurse come over, and the nurse looked at her and said, "It looks like it might be better to go to the hospital to deal with this." And so we ended up going to the hospital. It was an emergency room visit, and we stayed all into the night before we were able to get a room in the hospital. And then when she got a room, she was getting more medication for the pain. And fast forward to Thursday, June, whatever, 3rd? Is that, I can't remember. The 2nd, right? 2nd, I said she died on the 4th, right? So, yeah, it was the Thursday, June 2nd. We had a lot of my family and friends come to visit her in the room. And she was conscious on that Thursday. So she got to see a lot of family, which was nice. Yeah, I was surrounded the bed and we talked to her. She was really weak, and up until then she hasn't been eating and drinking. I mean, this was really draining her, and it was really tough because the tumor was just above, like in her large intestines, right? So like right above, like near her chest, and I think that was interfering a lot with her being able to eat. So she didn't eat, and so this was a downward spiral. Not eating and drinking, and then getting sick a lot, and then not just feeling weaker and weaker, and as the tumor seemed to really affect her. So she was awake on Thursday. She went unconscious sometime between Thursday and Friday. She was unconscious all day Friday. We had another group of friends and family come and stay with her. And I didn't stay in the hospital overnight. I had a friend, a close friend, stay with her on Thursday night, and then Friday night, two close friends stayed with her. So I went home. And Saturday morning, about 1:00 in the morning, one of the friends called to say she died. So I head over to the hospital, and she went. Luckily, because it was in the hospital, it was they have all the pain meds there. I think if we were at home, we were working with morphine only,
Right.
which was not enough to assuage her pain. So she had some fentanyl and some other thing being pumped into her, and it was calming her pain. But on Friday, she was unconscious most of the time, like she was sleeping, but she never woke up. And she died Saturday night at 1 a.m. Saturday morning, I should say, with her friends singing to her, and while I wasn't there. And I guess part of it is I was worried that when we were there at the hospital, I was looking at her. I was like, she can be like this, like she was unconscious and breathing. She might be like this for days.
Right.
And I think what happens is, what I've heard since then is that often spouses will leave the room and their significant other will die when the spouse leaves the room. So I want to believe that she sort of sent me home that night so that she could she could go. But she didn't go in pain. She didn't have any pain. I think when she died, she just stopped breathing, and she was in the middle of the song that our friends were singing to her.
Yeah.
So she went peacefully. So yeah, she was 65, a young 65.
Yeah. Well, the pictures that I've seen of her, she's definitely she
Yeah.
has a more youthful energy. Yeah.
Yeah. This disease, if anything, people listening to this show have to understand that ovarian cancer is a very nasty disease. Apparently, there's no pre-screening for it, but it does take away a lot of our partners. I've heard a lot of stories since people struggling with ovarian cancer. So yeah, so it's been a week. I sort of fast forward a little bit through the week because I lost track of time. Time is gone, sort of, and I can't believe it's been a week only. We buried her. We had what was called. She wanted a green funeral. So for those people who don't know what that is, and it's not necessarily putting a person in the ground and planting a tree over them, although I think that can be part of it. It's described, quote unquote, as a new funeral style, but it's actually the way people were buried prior to the times we started pumping their bodies full of formaldehyde. It's literally, a person is wrapped in a shroud, put on in this case, like in a sort of a half-size basket, and it's just put in the ground. She's just placed into the dirt, and there's no preservatives in her. She's just going to become one with the ground. And she wanted this because she wanted to make the least impact on the environment as possible. Cremation takes a lot of energy and stuff. And it's not a judgment, it's just this is what she wanted. What she wanted
to do, yeah.
Yeah. So she picked. There's only a few places. Not every cemetery in the New York area can do that. Greenwood Cemetery does actually have a space for green burial, which is I came across actually accidentally in the past couple of weeks. But it's really expensive to be buried there because there's so little room. Yeah. So she found a place in Sleepy Hollow, New York, which is just above Tarrytown. And I don't think she had any real connection to Sleepy Hollow, other than I think she liked the name. And that she liked where it was. And, Sleepy Hollow and Washington Irving is buried there. And there's the Headless Horseman Bridge is there.
Right.
Because, that's what you wanted, you know.
Yeah.
And there was another place actually. It's funny to mention. There was a place that was cheaper across the river on the west side of New York, but it's not up to me to second guess what she wanted, you know. And it wasn't about being cheap. It was like, okay, well, you know, this is what she wants, and I'll put her there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's I'm glad. It's a beautiful area. I went and we picked the plot out early in the week, and actually got 2 plots, so I know where I'm going
Cool.
at some point. And Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is as old as Greenwood Cemetery.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, yeah, they were both closely founded in roughly the same period of time.
Okay.
And if you know what Greenwood looks like through my pictures, Sleepy Hollow looks like that. It's a little more wild. I mean, it's looks more woodsy and whatnot. But it's a beautiful place. I picked a plot right near a tree and a bench. There was like a bench made of wood beams, like branches.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I can go and visit and sit right next to her. So the I'm going through a lot of description, but I think this is helpful.
No, I think we're a photographic podcast. We want to
Yeah.
describe. What does
And I'll
Gary
post them
Winogrand
in-
say? What do we, what does the camera do? It describes.
Yeah. I'll post a couple of pictures in the show notes to share, because I've been sharing about this so much. It's not, you're, in for a penny kind of thing. The funeral was really nice. It was the land that they bury the people in. If you look at it from the side of the road, it just looks like ground. It's not mowed. It's meant to look wild. In fact, there's all these milkweeds growing so they can attract the monarch butterflies.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so they just let it grow wild. Made it a little difficult for certain people to walk on it because it's a little rough. They're not allowed to have stones that stick up. The stones are flat.
Yeah, okay.
And the stones get picked from the riverbed. There's a river that runs through the cemetery. And like in a couple of months, I'll get to go there with the director of the Sleepy Hollow and another person, and we'll go find a flat stone at the riverbed, and I'll take that, and that's what I'll get inscribed, and then put it on that plot. So it's really beautiful. So
Very cool.
yeah. So during the funeral, we had, for immediate family. I mean, really, I thought it was going to be intimate, and this is about as intimate again. We had about 50 people. This is the bare minimum that we could have. This is how many people came to, how she's affected so many people, her family and stuff like that. If we had opened it up, I think there would have been a couple of hundred people. But we kept it,
And it was just graveside. It was not. There wasn't a service in a church or a community
There is,
hall or anything.
Yeah. There's the green funeral. The service is literally around the grave.
Okay.
So 5 or 6 people spoke. I spoke, of course. She was in a sort of a half basket with 6 handles on it. So the basket had a small rim on it. And before we brought her to the grave, we were allowed to put flowers into the basket surrounding her. So she was covered in flowers. She would have loved this. I know she would have loved this. In fact, I know she loves it. I can,
Good sense it.
I sensed it. And then we had us speak. I was the last one to speak. And then when she was lowered in, our friends sung the same song that they sung when she died. And then we literally bury her with shovels. We go in and ourselves. We couldn't finish it off. The cemetery crew does the rest, but and in the Jewish tradition, the shovel has to be initially upside down when you dig the dirt in. It's supposed to represent the reluctance of doing what we're doing. So you turn the shovel upside down, you pick up a little bit of dirt, put it in the grave, and then you do the regular shuffle.
Okay.
And also in the Jewish tradition, and you can see this in Zoom, sometimes you're supposed to rip a piece of fabric that you're wearing, like a shirt or something like that.
Sign of mourning.
Yeah, so instead of doing that, I have this little black ribbon that I wear with, and then we ripped it. We can see like
it's torn.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were allowed to put biodegradable things representing her into the grave. Nothing that would dissolve, the thing that wouldn't not dissolve, so no metal or plastic. But I put a wooden spoon in there to represent her cooking and her baking. And we put the ashes of her cat that she had a long time ago. Her cat Jack is in there. Some Haagen-Dazs ice cream was poured. She loved Haagen-Dazs. Yeah, Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream she liked a lot, and a few other things. And so it's been a week. This is what day is today? This is Sunday.
Yeah.
So this is just Thursday. Holy crap! Sorry, this feels like a week ago already. Just the burial.
Yeah. Today's the 12th as we record this.
Yeah. So. And I promised to talk about photography in this. It's a photography show, but I think I I felt I wanted to tell everybody what's going on as detailed as possible, so they know what's going on, and tell you too. I don't think I've told you all the details about this.
No. I'll say is on behalf of our audience, I really appreciate this, and this is your idea to share all this with us, and so I just wanted to say up front. This is pretty amazing what you're doing with the sharing.
Thank you.
At this time, because it's it's I don't know, it's something none of us really want to deal with, but we're all in some way curious about. But you're always conflicted about a friend who's bereaved. Like, what can I do? And you feel like now I'm is there anything you need? And suddenly the person who's bereaved is like having to worry about me being assigned a task to do for you. And it's just sort of like, and I just said, how are you doing? And you said you were chilling. It was just over Discord. And you said, well, I'll chat soon, but I'm just chilling watching a movie. And I thought, damn, I wanted to leave the guy alone so he could just chill with his movie.
Actually, everybody is saying that, and I understand it. It's the desire to want to help somebody, and people say, how are you doing? And it's like, that question is really big, Yeah. And all I can say is like how I'm doing at this moment,
Right.
And, what's going on at this very second, and it's a wave and it's a process, and I think this is almost like for the end of the show, but I don't want to say it. It's like this whole process. Elizabeth she knew she was going to die when we went our last visit to the doctor, and they were like, we can't do anything more. And I think I might have mentioned this in the last show, in the dispatches from Woundward. I can't remember, but we didn't know that it was like literally going to be 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks, 2 months.
Yeah.
And hanging out with her and talking to her about this, she was scared. She was mostly scared about the pain. But she was able to muster up some curiosity about what there might be for her after she dies. And neither one of us are very religious. She's she's Jewish, and she does follow her religion as a, occasionally go to the holidays and stuff, but she tried to do the best she can. But neither one of us really are, think of an afterlife directly. But then, and I'll tell you a story maybe a little bit later in the show about something. But the fact that she could muster up curiosity about what was going to happen made me really be less frightened of this thing, even for myself, and maybe a little bit even for her, like just not as scared. And I got so many people telling me, like therapists, doctors, like how she went after this, like she tried to battle it as best she could. She lost, but like it, she worked up until the last possible minute. Now, people might be saying, why should she be working and blah, blah, blah. And I won't go too much into it, but actually sometimes for her working was great, because otherwise she said it would be sitting around thinking about this.
Right.
So her job was remote. So it was just going to the computer and talking to people. And she would get so animated when she was actually working with her coworkers like this. I was so happy to see that, every day a little battle was fought. And if she was doing good, that was great, so
You had a
if
good
her
day.
work was making her feel, if her work
Yeah.
was making her feel better, that was fantastic. And I forgot where I was going. Boom. Boy, this is what happens. This is my brain on.
Well, this was
but
about seeing how you're doing and so on.
right, and then also just how she was tackling this. She was pretty brave about this, and that's not hyperbole or anything like that. I mean, I don't think I could have faced it the same way she's facing it, but I think I could now. And the whole process, watching her go, I saw that it was peaceful for her. It was less painful, and the green burial, like this whole thing together, has got me thinking about, it's time to think about this kind of stuff. Like I didn't have a burial plot up until now. So she's doing this. So I want to talk about some gifts that she gave. So to get into the photography part, because this is what led me to ask you to do the show with me, so that I didn't want to do another Dispatches from Greenwood by myself. I really wanted to. I really want to talk to people. In fact, I'm noticing I just want to talk to people about stuff.
I'm
doing
here,
more
man.
talking. Yeah. So a few weeks ago, we went on a retreat upstate New York to a town, Hudson, the place where I photograph all the time. And the reason why you see so many of my pictures from Hudson is because we've attended this retreat once a year for the past few years. Well, we didn't go during COVID, but prior to that, a few years straight. And our therapists have a space there, and it was a couples group. So there's a bunch of couples and people that we've known for a while, because we've been doing these couples groups for
It's the same group of people every time.
It more or less is. There's a core group. It's evolved a lot during the years, but the therapist who was running it it's a couple, man and woman couple team, and the woman was once my therapist, and the man was Elizabeth's therapist, and I'm so glad that she had him to be able to sort of also work through this stuff during the past couple of years. So this was a year we thought the retreat, we could do it in person instead of avoiding it from COVID.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, she had booked an Airbnb, and unfortunately it was on the second floor of an old house. But when she booked it, she was able to walk, and when we got there, she was on a walker, so it was a big struggle for her to get up to the Airbnb on the second floor. Anyway, we did the retreat on a Saturday, and it was great because it was also kind of like saying goodbye to these people we've known, some of them for 20 plus years. And we kind of knew it. I mean, looking at the way the shape that she was in, I didn't think she was going to make it to another group, in a couple of months in July. So we got home after the retreat, and we were sitting up on the porch of this Airbnb in Hudson, and the light was really nice. It was really nice. It was sun setting through trees, warm, summery kind of day. I mean, you could just imagine it, right? And I had my camera with me. I brought my camera to take pictures of the group. And, of course, I thought I'd be able to walk around Hudson. I did walk around and take a few pictures. I love that town. And
brings out your Evans.
It does. The
Evans-esque.
meditation. Evans-esque, yeah. So she's sitting there on the porch, and I'm sitting there too. And I'm looking at her. And I asked her, "Can I take your picture?" And she usually does not like me taking her photograph. And it's not, she just didn't like to be photographed.
Yeah.
But she didn't look, I think she didn't like, she didn't know. I know she did not like the way she looked in photographs. She felt like she looked overweight or made a funny face or something like this. She was very critical of her looks. She didn't really have anything to worry about, frankly.
Most
but I generally,
don't.
I wouldn't post the pictures unless it was like, a family shot I took her. Or like I would show it to her. Can I post this? Is this okay? She'd be like, yeah. But I took this. I asked her, and usually I don't ask her to take a picture. It's like, can I take your shot? And she said, yeah. And so I had my Fuji XT XT3 and with one of the TT Artisans lenses that we all know and love. And I just, did a quick shot, 3 shots. One looked really good, 2 were not good. And I tweaked it a little in Lightroom just to bring out what I thought was the lightness and softness. I wanted to soften her skin a little bit because it was really kind of, the lighting wasn't being perfectly flattering, but I softened it a little bit. And it was my mind's eye, the way it looked,
Right.
So great shot. I showed it to her. She was really happy. I said, I'm not going to post it right now, because we've been keeping her sort of, the way she looked sort of off public, most of the time off of like things like Facebook. Anyway, so I have this picture, right? Okay, so she dies, blah blah blah, and I set up a memorial page for her on Facebook, which is really nice to do. Given all the weirdnesses of Facebook, this kind of thing that they can do, like posting like a group page where everybody can sort of come together, is pretty fantastic. So few days ago, I'm looking at that picture and I'm thinking I want to share it with a group at Facebook called the Frames Magazine Group, which is a photographer group, a private group. I can't remember if I've mentioned them before on the show, but I
think you mentioned it when we had the interview with Shane, because Shane,
right, that's how
because that's how you found him.
Yeah, that's how I found him. Yeah. I feel like I need to make a reason for this. I don't have to make a reason, but my thinking was, and this is a sort of a flashback to my mom passed away in 2009, and she died also of cancer. And I was in the hospital room with her by myself, and she was in a coma or she was sleeping, and I was by myself. Elizabeth wasn't there, and I think one of the things that maybe people who've gone through stuff like this understand is that sometimes in times like this, you really want to reach out to people. You want to talk to people, anybody. I'm sitting in the hospital room with my mom, and I wanted to talk to somebody. So I was on Twitter, and Twitter back then was when Twitter was, I hate to say this, was like really had a point. It was great because I just put out what was going on, and people who were following me just started talking to me almost in real time. And while I'm sitting in the room, I was getting this dialogue with people who I'd never met in person, but they were listening to my story about my mom and stuff like that, and offering words. If you want to talk, some people were sending me their phone numbers to call, and I felt not alone, which was great. And so fast forward to now, and I've got a lot of support, but a lot of people who are around are no longer around. They're going back to their families have gone back, and it was great to have them around. A few people are still around I can hang out with, but I've been longing for sort of that same kind of connection in a social media way, because it was really helpful to talk to strangers too. And I don't mean like some people I know, but to like have people shared experiences brought me a lot of comfort. And so I debated about putting this on the Frames magazine. I didn't put it, I posted this picture that I took of her on her memorial page and blah, 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 but I wanted to approach it slightly different. So I put it up in the Frames magazine page, and I wrote something which I want to read.
Okay.
Actually, I'll read it, but I'll read it because my motivations are in this. And excuse, I'm not always good at reading things, and excuse the grammar if it's messed up, but I'm going to read it directly from what I wrote. So
okay.
I put this up, I can't remember. I think I put this up on Friday. So I said, this is a portrait of my wife. This is the last portrait I took of her. She died this past Saturday of ovarian cancer. I debated with myself about posting this shot here because I wasn't sure what I was trying to say by sharing it here. I said, to be honest, I really feel like reaching out to people now in the hope that they'll reach back to me and share their stories so that I won't feel as alone with my pain and sadness. But since this is a photography group and not a therapy group, I also want to talk a little bit about what makes this photo, what the photo means to me. I took this a couple of weeks ago in Hudson, New York, after we attended a retreat for couples. It was at the end of the retreat when we were back at the place we were staying. I had my camera and I asked her if I could take a shot of her. The light was perfect. Her pose was just right. I made 3 frames and this was the best shot. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer 2 years ago this month. It's been a roller coaster of hope and despair for these 2 years. I've been her primary caregiver, and doing that has taken its toll on me too. My desire to take photos has diminished over these past 2 years as well. I didn't document her fight with disease other than the personal images I took with my phone, and I really never shared those. Those are too personal. When I took this shot, we already knew she didn't have long to live. In fact, the retreat we attended was also a goodbye to the other couples who were there. We both knew this would be our last summer together, probably our last June. She really never liked having her image taken, even by me. I looked at her at this moment on the porch, and I could see that she really was okay with me taking the photo. She gave me this gift. What I want to say about this now is that I realize a photograph isn't always about the best exposure or decisive moment or whatever. A photo can be a link to a moment of time, frozen forever in a memory of love. It doesn't matter how the image was taken, only why it was taken. My wife Elizabeth gave me this gift of her likeness, and it's one I'll cherish until the end of time. It's the best photo I've taken ever. Then I just said, thanks for letting me post it here and share my thoughts and feelings with you. It was probably one of the best things I did in that group in terms of I got exactly what I wanted.
What you wanted, yeah.
So many people reached out to me in comments to tell me so many different things, their stories about similar things, taking care of people who've passed away, even just reaching out to, to virtually hug me or something like that. And I read all the comments yesterday morning, like over breakfast,
Yeah.
and one after the other, which was not easy because it's hard to read through tears.
Mm-hmm.
But I got what I wanted. I wanted to share this photograph, which I think is a really nice picture. And I'll put it in the show notes. I'll share this. She'd be okay with it. The picture describing it, she's sitting there, and you could see, without having seen previous photographs of her, you can see how the cancer is, what it's done to her body, at least the upper part of her body. But she's looking at me through the lens. She's, holding her phone in one hand. She's got her blue glasses on her head. Some of her hair was able to grow back because the chemo that was the final chemos weren't taking her hair away. So she still had some fine hair. It was so soft, by the way. Her hair was so soft. And she's got her hand. Her hand is to her chin a little bit, and she's looking at the camera with a bit of a smile, and the eyes are direct. And I can see there's so much stuff in this photograph about. Like how I said in another post about this picture that she didn't win the war against cancer, but she won 1,000 battles against it, which is true. And in the shot, I can see, I know her, but I noticed that other people noticed that she's like, I can see this is killing me, and I'm not going to let it affect this moment, being photographed. So the picture reminds me of the fact that, first of all, it's good to take pictures of the people you love, even if they protest sometimes. But just the power of a photograph. Like I've been noticing, been getting a lot of pictures posted up on the group. The memorial group I made. My sister-in-law gave me a whole bunch of snapshots, actual prints that I'm going to scan. This and the pictures of her over time. How from the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. And I'm not saying anything new here about the power of the photograph. But I think it needs we need to be reminded of it, because like I said in what I wrote, it's like not every photograph is the decisive moment. Not every photograph is the, like the shot that we look to get 1,000 likes to,
Right.
or something
Yeah.
like that. And disclosure is like, when I last checked, I think this is my most popular picture that I posted in terms of like getting, comments and people
Interactions with
reacting, interactions with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with what I wrote about it too. The context about it as well. But for me, like, I look at this picture and I don't think I'll ever take a better picture than this, because it has meaning. It's a beautiful picture. It's a well done picture. I think, it's not overly done. It feels natural, and
It's
I
not
don't know what to
contrived.
say about it.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And in this case, knowing the story about it is also important. But it made me think about that in terms of other pictures I want to take in the future. I've taken, like, what are the stories about that? We never really talked about this on the show, have we? About
No,
the words
not
and
this
photographs.
particular thing. No, we talked about with Dave, I think, on the of the about instead of. We talked a little bit about having words being companions to photographs.
Right. And we probably also mentioned not every picture needs to have words with it. It's it's not one or the other.
No.
I think all these can sort of live simultaneously, and they can. But yeah, I wanted to sort of share that whole thing, with everybody, talking about this, like, even just to our audience here, and to you.
No, I think it's very brave and cool thing you're doing here.
I don't have a choice.
No, and that's why I don't have much to say or to add, because it's just sort of when things happen in life and they're not, I can't say anything. I can't add. I really can't. But yeah. Just a deep appreciation for what you've done here and coming and talking with us.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to let another. I was thinking, like, do I want to do show? No, I just put up another rerun or something like that. And I was like, I think I was just in a spot. In fact, I think I was talking to you too, at the same time, just in a place where I thought, this show is a very personal show in some sense. It's for both of us. We're and it's always been for me. I think, like, when I started with Tom and stuff like that, it was like, well, I'm not going to do it like other shows. This is it's going to have the some of the life stories in it sometimes.
Well, I think of my whole life in photography almost every time I search back to those earlier years, or telling the 12-year-old me about you can do this kind of thing that we had talked about before.
Yeah.
Looking back, I know. Yeah.
But, it is true that, like, the past couple of years, I mean, even though we've talked about photography and I've done the show, I was like, I don't think, with COVID and at the same time because these are simultaneous almost, diagnosis and caregiving really only started in earnest more recently, but it wasn't only like, it was like a mental thing as well, like
Right.
A couple of years ago when we got the diagnosis. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So a couple of years when we got the diagnosis, I was scared out of my mind. So it was Elizabeth, because we didn't know what it meant. We just didn't know, And again, I said in the thing, it was a roller coaster of hopes and despair. Like, oh, this is working. No, this is not working. Oh, this is, and I can see that's affected. And again, COVID came at the same time, and so like I really lost a big desire to do the kind of photography that I was doing prior to that. Street photography really took sort of a dive for me. And again, I would walk through Greenwood and shoot, but there was some stuff is missing. That's what about this photograph to me is like. This is why I said it was a gift from her, and she's giving me lots of gifts. By the way, I mean it's an endless thing that she's even taking care of me from beyond her life. Like this picture is the kind of picture I want to take. Like a picture with meaning. I can't do it all the time, but a picture with meaning, a picture that's got context, a nice photograph. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff in it that I have not been able to do in the past couple of years, or even few years. I don't know. How to say this, but gosh.
Well, it's like a pure expression. I know that,
we talked about.
We look at our own
right?
work as we become photographic critics. Like this works better than that, and there's a mathematics or something that we're applying to what we're looking at in this cold way. And some of these photographers, and we were talking before the show started about photojournalists and so on. Would you guys like you and I have the wherewithal to be able to take pictures like that, the human drama, for instance, in a war zone or something, pictures of that nature that have a real human connection, and that you plug in your abilities and creativity to create these images that have these deeper meanings? And I think you've really hit on it. I mean, I will agree, it's an amazing photograph, and it's multi-layered. Like I've never met her, but now I feel like I have. And your description of her and what I know of her, like now I'm getting it. I'm starting to get it. I think that's all you could hope for in terms of, what I'm sensing from you, the meaning and the value of this photograph and of her.
Yeah. It also comes from a heightened sense of emotion. I mean, wasn't a typical weekend in Hudson. This was, and I don't know if I could have produced a picture like this if it was a typical weekend in Hudson, or if things weren't going this way. I don't. But there's this part of me that says it don't have to be in a crisis or something to really put this kind of energy into making a photograph. So what I wanted to say before I forgot, because it just popped in my mind, so she got diagnosed in June of 2020. Scary stuff, right? And I don't know if I told you this, but listening to the Lenswork podcast, Brooks Jensen, I listen to that all the time, right? Sometime in the past, like, was it in 2020? I'm not sure when.
2020 or 2019. I think I know where you're going, yeah.
I think it was 2020. It had to be after.
Okay.
But it had to be after, because he did an episode where he talked about his wife also losing her battle with ovarian cancer.
Maureen.
Yeah. And I listened to that episode, and it scared the shit out of me when he talked about that. For some reason, I just stopped listening to his show. After that, I almost couldn't. I don't know why. I don't know why, but there's part of me that was just too scared to. Like, I didn't know how he was going to deal with that, and especially because it was ovarian cancer. Like, I was very hyper aware of any things with ovarian cancer that really just sort of, like, in my neighborhood, there's actually an organization that has a storefront that I happened by during one of my walks once by accident, and it's a ovarian cancer awareness group. They have a storefront, and I walked by. I'm like, "What is this?" And I looked at it, and I just went into shock when I saw it because it was just, this is again. It was early on, and I still thought it was a death sentence and stuff like that. And anyway, some soon after that, when I heard Brooks speak about his wife's losing the battle, I want to say I identified with him in some way, and I didn't want to know how it turned out for him. And so I just stopped listening to show. And partially ashamed about that, but not really. I'm just like, this is how I reacted. And I actually recently, in the past month or two, started listening to a show again. And it was like sort of, I don't know, like I think the image I have is like when I heard it, when he said this, you like pretended like he was in a room talking about this, and I slammed the door and I kept the door closed. And a couple of weeks ago, I just opened the door a little bit, and listening to his show again, I can hear his voice. It sounds a little different to me than it did prior. That could just be me. And I heard, he's doing these projects on the Oregon coast, photographing, and he's still talking about, he's got here's a thought, his little short podcast that he does.
Yeah.
And then he does his long one that's 15 minutes, and I heard him, and he sounds okay, and I guess what I was realizing is that I can probably be okay after this too, so if he's listening, or if anybody listens to his show and listens to this show, I actually sent him an email through one of his through his website. I don't know if he got it, and it was just to reach out to him to let him know exactly what I said, that I had stopped listening because I was scared. And hopefully he'll see it. Maybe reach out and talk. Maybe not. It's not it's not important. I just felt like I wanted to say that to him and the world. But I was a little bit, I was just scared. I didn't want to hear how someone like him. In fact, I haven't gone back to those previous episodes. That might be the next step, is to go find out where I left off and hear what his progression was. And some of you might have listened to it and you might know, but don't spoil it for me.
Okay. I was going to, because there was some interesting stuff going on. I'll let you listen. So
yeah. Okay. I think
it's worth listening to.
Yeah. Well, I think I need that because I still am not fantastically excited about photography at the moment. Although, I mean, I did binge buy a couple of things.
Never ends.
Well, yeah, this was not I bought an XT3, and I bought a couple of other TT Artisan lenses, and all that was really about making me try to feel better. Like I didn't need the cameras or anything like that. It's a
impulse.
I don't know. It's just what I did. I didn't need it, and it made me feel better for about 10 minutes. I'll let you know. Like when I opened the camera box and I was like, "Oh, this is great," and then I was like, the hell's the difference between this and the XT2? There's like no difference. A couple more megapixels. That's it. It wasn't. Although they have the Eterna. It does have the Eterna.
Well, that's right. That nice video filmic profile.
Yeah, filmic thing. And you know what? I can probably use these cameras. I know at some point when I get back into doing stuff, I'll make use of it. But it was really just to try to stem off some of the pain of what was going on. By the way, it doesn't work. So if you think you're going to make yourself happy by buying cameras or lenses, Although I think the picture I took of Elizabeth, I think was one of the TT Artisan lenses I got. It's like 30. I think it was a 35 millimeter. But anyway, So yeah, and during the like I said, during the funeral, I had my camera with me. I had I brought my X100F, and I slung that around, and I took some pictures of her going into the grave, and what her basket looked like, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and so it was photographically worthy, at least for a memory and something like that. It wasn't, yeah. And if anybody sees this and says, what a green funeral is like, again, it's, it was a worthwhile thing to see and experience as well. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this.
Well, I think that's plenty. I don't know. Yeah. I don't mean to cut you off or anything,
Yeah?
but it's a very emotional time and subject, and
I know.
I
Be
here to be a sounding board for you. But
well, no, I'm glad. I don't. Again, I'm sort of the lessons I'm learning. I tend to be more introverted, as a person. Strangely enough, but I don't reach out to. I haven't reached out and called people a lot lately, and I noticed like how this brings out all the people to come to me, and I realize like talking to people in real life, other than like chatting or messaging and stuff like that, like just even talking to people on the phone is a world of difference. Is a world of difference in how I feel about stuff. And so doing this, also was helping out. So I don't want to hide it away. And again, maybe going back to Brooks, the fact that he shared that on his podcast, I think might be sort of a little bit of the incentive in the back of my mind about doing this, because his show is him, right? It's pretty much talking about his experiences in photography, and you can't disassociate the show from the person.
Nope.
I kind of think about that this way too. So I'll have to give him some credit that I wasn't even aware of. That I think by being that honest about what's going on in life, because that's how I am, and that's how I want the show to be, and that's how I want anything I'm doing in this space that we've created, and whatever space we end up creating in the future. That's what I want people to connect with. They can connect with me and you and what we do, and they'll either like it or they won't like it, But that's what I want. But anyway, I wanted to remember this. This was an interesting experience just after the funeral, and nothing to do with photography per se, but pretty amazing nonetheless. I'm not like I said, I'm not a religious person. I'm not a very superstitious person. I tend to be grounded in reality, but I have a very open mind, and I feel like I'm a spiritual person as well. So, I open to, I'm pretty much open to a lot of possibilities. I'm not like this can't happen, or there isn't this, trying to be, because I don't know what's going on. But take this as you will. I was driving back from the cemetery, and I was driving three of my friends, Gene Mealy, who has been on the show a long time ago. I want to talk to you about him post-show, because we have to have Gene on the show.
Okay.
And his wife and another friend. And I was listening to, I had a playlist running. It's this, I call it, it's like my 80s playlist or something like that. Or classic rock, right? So it's all the classic stuff that I wrote with. It's about 1,000 songs.
Okay.
So I dropped them off in Park Slope in Brooklyn, and I get out of the car, hug, and then I get back in the car, and the music's playing. Just as I get into the car and start driving, our wedding song comes on. Elizabeth and My's wedding song, which is the Beach Boys' God Only Knows. And
Pet Sounds, great album. That's a great song.
Yeah. And prior to this, every time I heard that song, if we were driving and the playlist played it, or we were someplace and the radio played it, I didn't really just break out into tears, and it was not tears of sadness. It was just an over emotion because she was there. Like that song meant so much to us, especially because it was our wedding song, and uh, it we would both like look at each other and be in tears when we heard the song, and so when I drove away and all of a sudden that song came on, a very strange experience happened in the car. Like I felt, and this is in my new Nissan Altima. I felt like a sudden overpressure in the car. Like if you walk into an airlock and it goes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that experience?
Yeah.
Like there was suddenly more air in the car than, and then the song played, and I tried to cry and I couldn't. Like I tried to have, like, in a sense, like the natural experience for me is to tear up, and especially I was thinking this is the day I buried her, and I'm listening. All of a sudden, my wedding song came on out of nowhere, and like I'm trying to like I'm not having the same experience that I did before, and when the song ended, the overpressure or the feeling of overpressure dissipated, and I really, really believe the experience was her in the car with me, and she made me listen to the lyrics about this song, and then she left, and it was really, of course, we can rationalize it and it can come up with a bazillion reasons. It's coincidence. The song came up, and that's all possible. I choose to believe that she stopped in, told me, and the reason why I couldn't cry was like, just you're going to listen to this song differently from now on, or you're going to experience this differently. This is not about, I don't know. I'm still processing the experience. But it was something that I didn't, I never experienced before. And of course, yes, I'm a heightened sense of emotions, but I'm not looking for a rational explanation. It's sometimes worth it not to try to figure this stuff out and just experience it for what it is, and whatever message is coming through. I'm holding on to it in some way to remember her, and to also think that she's still somehow taking care of me in whatever way, whether it's through the ether or through her embedded into my being somehow, which I think is also the case. I somehow feel a more clarity, the relief that I have that I'm no longer a caregiver, because I took an amazing amount. For those people who are out there who do this, for anybody who does this, I mean, I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, I was doing caregiving maybe a 6, maybe a little bit more towards the end. But I know there's people who do much, much more for their people they take care of. So I can only imagine what they're going through, and to not have to do that anymore, that was such a relief. That's another gift she's given me. That I don't have to take care of.
I know some people feel guilt about the relief part.
Yeah, I don't, and I get why one would, survivor guilt in some way, or just like, why should I feel this way? But for anybody who's going through this, who's gone through this, you have to remember this is the person just relieving you of this. This is, you don't understand how much energy it goes into being a caregiver, because it's like it grows and grows and grows and grows, and don't realize all the pressure that's on. And all of a sudden, when it's not there, you're like, holy crap, this is what it's like. This is what it's like not to have to do this. So that's a gift that the person gives. So to lamely throw this back into photography is I don't know. I was thinking, like, don't ever I don't know. Actually, I don't really have a lesson for photography. I'm just realizing that I feel like photography was part of our lives a lot. She encouraged my photography. She didn't like my photography all the time, by the way. which I really
I have a
found
spouse that
impressive.
doesn't really care for most of my pictures, so that's fine.
Yeah,
But when
she
you
would
get that
angry.
one, when you do get that one like from her on Instagram, you're like, ooh, okay, so
Well, wait, I know it's like what,
I'll
that's a
take that
surprise.
one.
Yeah, she didn't. Some of my street photography she wasn't too happy with, and I was like, that's fine. That's in fact, I actually prefer that. My mom was always like, "Oh, I love your pictures. I love your pictures." I'm like, "Mom, can you like?" My brain was like, "Can you just hate one of my pictures, please? Stop being a mom." It's just like
Yeah,
hate a picture. It was a little too much for her. But Elizabeth's like, "I don't like you took that picture. Why did you take that picture?" And she, so we bounced back and forth a little bit about that. But photography was part of our life. We grew up. We met each other in a photography agency, the Image Bank, 1985. So we actually knew each other for a very long time before we actually got together. Photography had a lot to do. I worked on some of her books when she was working at a New York Times Publishing. She did a bunch of wedding books under the name of Bet Matthews. She didn't ever want to use her real name, but she used her name Bet Matthews as her pen name, and we did a bunch of wedding books because she loved wedding things, weddings and presentations and stuff like that. And so, actually, one job I did with her, I shot, I shot on film, and then I shot with like a Nikon Coolpix, one of the old 3 megapixel bendy
right.
lenses.
Yeah,
And it was we were doing studio stuff, and that stuff went into books, by the way. So it was kind of crazy. So yeah, we were sort of ensconced in photography, and actually, she was a photographer too. And she did a lot of photography, and I need to find those pictures. Actually, her stuff. I'm sure I'll find it as I start going through her work. But she did a lot of her own photography, so that photography was part of our lives, even when we weren't together. Working in the photo agency and stuff like that. But anyway, I think I've talked enough about this for now. I feel I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you and the audience about this, because then it's not something that's lingering. It's not I think it's I can move on from this, and I don't know. People saying it's going to take a long time. It's going to take however much time. I'm not rushing. My my feelings about this, or it's just But I know talking about this would be the elephant in the room. I imagine if we didn't talk about this
right.
now,
Yeah.
we did a show. It's like, what would be going on, especially after the last one I did from Greenwood.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a dispatches from Sleepy Hollow at some point. The place is fantastic. It looks it's just as craggly and stuff as Greenwood. There's mausoleums. Leona Helmsley is there, buried there.
Okay.
We're actually looking down on her mausoleum, so we get to look down our noses on Leona Helmsley, just to make fun of that a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for
Well, thank you for sharing, man.
Yeah.
It's, like I say, I'm running out of words.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
important.
Really? You have no words?
I have no words. No, because it's not a philosophical battle about the aspects of photography. It's much bigger than that. It's it's life.
Yeah, and it's kind of what I want to remember. I don't want to. Yeah, so don't want to go back into the routine. I want to remember this experience. I guess that's another reason why I want to talk about it, because I want people who can listen to what we're talking about, listen to what I'm talking about, to like really let it sink in. And we can't spend all our days in grief. Emotions are just an up and down thing. You just can't do that. But you got to be able to hang on to some of this. Like if a picture like this that I took of her gives me like a lesson that I can hold on to and that I can incorporate from now on, then it's sort of the show and what we're talking about serves its purpose. Like I don't want to go back to the way things were. I can't. The experience is changing me, and talking about it is just talking about something like this publicly is sort of changing me as well. So, so anybody sees me going back to the old ways, feel free to shout out and say, "Hey, ain't you doing the thing you said you weren't going to do?" Like as I declare that out loud to everybody, because
now you're committed. So that's.
I'm committed. Yeah. All right. Anyway, thank you, Ward, for being here. This actually, this is helpful too. So
I'm happy to do it, my friend.
Yeah. So where are we at? Where can you be found in the world? In case nobody knows.
I can be found at Ward Rosin Fine Art on Instagram. I'm Ward Rosin Photography on Facebook. And I'm W Rosin Photo on Twitter. And I'm getting, actually, since I mentioned my name about Twitter, I'm getting some more engagement there. And thank you very much for that. And
really?
I have a little company called Ornis Photo. It's Ornis, ORNIS .photo. And I sell lens adapters and Asian-sourced lenses. And it's a lot of fun. And did my taxes here, and I made a little bit of money. I don't know where all that money went, but
good.
I made a little. So I just went back into inventory. But
because you're our unofficial sponsor.
The unofficial
sponsor. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where you'll find
put
me.
some money into some podcast stuff.
Some podcast stuff. Okay, well, let's see what.
But we got to get a logo made so we can put a little lower third or something like that.
Well, I've got a logo, but it's we'll talk. Maybe we'll do a big deal here.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And again, I'm still off Instagram. I'm debating again whether to start a new one or not. I might just start one. But so don't go to Instagram to look for me. Although, actually, my pictures are still there. You can see it, AM Rosario. Just don't follow me, because the hacker will get you. AM Rosario on Twitter. If you want to reach out to me, I know some people are having a hard time trying to get through to me on Twitter and send messages of support, which I was really appreciative. You could just email me at antonio@amrosario.com. So that's my name, antonio@amrosario.com. I'd give you the Street Shots email address, but this is more direct and it comes right to me. And that's my website too, is amrosario.com. And maybe I wanted to talk about, I also have this little Photoville show. I don't know if I talked about that.
I don't think you have. I know we've talked about it in the chat, but I don't think you.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to get out there and see what pictures are out there, and maybe we can talk about that next show. But I also want to get my friend Gene on the show and talk about photography. I want to get more people on the show and start doing. I keep saying this, but let's get Gene on the show and we'll find a time and talk to him about stuff, so that it will come up in the future, and then whoever else. Cool. So, yeah, Ward, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time tonight.
My pleasure, as always.
Yeah, and well, hopefully, we'll see everybody in a couple of few weeks into June. All right, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
Have a good night.
You too. We'll see you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.